If you participate in strength sports in any capacity, chances are you're doing your accessories wrong. Does this sound like you? Load the machine up as heavy as possible. Move the weight for as many reps as has been described by your program, and hope that the weight is heavy enough that you're really close to failure. Now, not to say that this won't get you any results, but you can do way better. But most of you won't because you've got to leave your ego at the doorstep. Because chances are your form sucks, you're using way too much body English, and just because the weight's moving doesn't mean you're doing it right. Because chances are you missed the whole point of doing accessories. Accessories is stretching under a load. But Patrick, what does this mean? If you've spent any significant amount of time on bodybuilding.com, you would know that lifting creates tiny little micro tears in your muscles. And the process of tearing your muscles in this way and having your body repair itself is precisely how muscle growth works. How do you optimize that process for the maximal amount of muscle gains? It boils down to 3 variables. You're already playing with one of them, and that's going to be the weight that you're moving. Because there's 3 ways to get stronger. Increase the weight, increase the reps, or do it faster. Now that last one is a little ambiguous. What does it mean to do it faster? My boys, that's a misnomer. That means reduce your rest time. Because unless you're a cuck, you are always trying to move the weights as fast as you can. You can nearly increase the amount of reps you do in an exercise near indefinitely, but there gets to a point where you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies for an extra rep. And that's when you increase the weight. And those are the 3 ways that you can progress. You increase the weight, you increase your rest time, you keep the reps the same. You get stronger by keeping the weight the same, keeping the reps the same, decreasing the rest time. Any sort of variable change like that will mean that you're progressing. But why is this relevant? Because, little ones, there's a better way to progress. And that's going to be the other 2 ways that you can optimize your training outside of playing with your weight. And that's going to be time under tension and range of motion. Now, time under tension is a masochist way of increasing your potential. You set a timer, probably like 30 seconds to a minute, that you're going to lift a weight nonstop. You're not going to put the dumbbell down. You're not going to rack the stack. This puts your muscles in a scenario called a hypoxic response. In order to contract, your muscles require oxygen. Pretty much every function of your body requires oxygen. So when you contract your muscles are using up the oxygen stores that are in your muscles. So by increasing the time under tension, you're using up more and more oxygen that your muscles require. That's one of the reasons why you feel a burn when you're going through a set. Because the way that your body delivers oxygen to your muscles is through your bloodstream. So when your muscles require more oxygen, your body directs more blood flow towards those muscles. This means you get a bigger pump, boys. You're gonna look thicker. You're gonna look juicier. You're gonna be what women want. And a bonus benefit of putting your muscles in a hypoxic state is that it is a detrimental state for your body to be in. And the way that your body responds to a state that is detrimental for it to be in is to adapt. And luckily, this time the adaptation is to get stronger. So now you're 2/3 of the way to optimizing your training. Those are the 2 easiest ways. The 3rd way requires that you leave your ego at the doorstep because it's the first of the 3 where you're actually going to have to reduce the amount of weight you're lifting in order to have it optimized. But believe me, boys, this 3rd way is going to make your pumps way bigger because as gym bros, it is always our goal to not fit through doorways. And I'm talking about range of motion. If any of you watched Kai Green lifting videos in the late 2000s, you might recall him talking about a stretch and compress. And a lot of high-level lifters have tried to express the same thing before, but generally, lifters suck at explaining things. So let me attempt to do it despite also being a lifter who sucks at explaining things. Increasing your range of motion has many benefits. If you're a physics nerd like me, you know that increasing the range of motion means that you're moving an object much further, so thusly you're putting in more work. It's in physics. Just look up the work equation. Force times distance, that's work. As we mentioned earlier, when you lift, you create tiny little micro tears in your muscles. And when you consume protein in a healthy diet, those micro tears get turned into muscle fibers rather than scar tissue. And that's how you grow your muscles. But when you're lifting, there's actually 4 phases in which you are lifting. There's the eccentric part, which Kai Green used to call the stretch. There's the concentric part, which is the compress. And then there's the extremes of both sides of those, which, if you optimize it, will be very beneficial and the crux of your accessories. When you increase your range of motion in the eccentric, you optimize the tiny little muscle tears that happen in your muscles, meaning you get the most bang for your buck every time you do that accessory. And a little bonus benefit, tendinitis develops when you don't stretch enough. So you are likely to develop tendinitis if you are only focusing on the compression part of your accessory. So by elongating that eccentric, you're stretching out the muscle and mitigating any sort of tendinitis, and you're going to end up being stronger in every range of motion that you're practicing. So how do we round all of this together into an optimized accessory kind of structure? And that's going to be called a tempo. A tempo is going to look at those 4 phases and give you an internal count that you're going to follow in order to have those 4 phases be optimized within your training. The tempo you should follow is 0-1-3-2. The O means that you compress your muscle, you do the concentric of the movement as fast as you can. That's going to build explosive power in your muscles. At the top of the movement, you're going to want to squeeze that muscle as tight as you can. This means that you are exerting more force on whatever you're moving than is required of you to actually lift it. So you're going to be putting forth more effort to get that squeeze. And you hold that squeeze for a 1 count. That's the 1. After you've paused at the top and gotten the biggest squeeze that you can, control the weight down to the bottom. Focus on that connection of releasing that muscle as it's going down to the end point. You're eventually going to get to a point where you're going to start feeling the stretch of the muscle. This eccentric part of the movement is the 3 count. You have an internal 3 count to go from the top to the bottom. You control it the whole way, focusing on that mind-muscle connection. And the 2 at the end means hold the stretch all the way at the bottom as far as you can get it for about an internal 2 count. So to go back over it, 0-1-3-2. You explode up, hold it for a moment, control it back down, and let the stretch really sit in for a moment or 2. This is going to abuse the fact that having that timer detention is really good. And it's also going to be abusing the fact that range of motion optimizes those micro tears in your muscle bellies, meaning you're going to get bigger pumps along with bigger pumps. So your pumps might be twice as big. They will feel a lot more bigger. It's going to make the lips in between her hips looking like more sour cream dip, because you're going to be attractive to women. Don't believe me? Try it out and tell me just how good your joints feel the day after and how thick and juicy that pump was when you were performing the movements. And always remember, we're not doing this to look good naked. We're doing this because we're ugly, which means we have to lift as heavy as possible because women don't want us anyways. So stay degenerate, and Patty's out.